So when you hear war over Taiwan, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably warships, right? Fighter jets, amphibious assaults, the whole nine yards. But what if I told you the real battle is already happening, and it's not being fought with missiles?
Yeah, see, the sources we're digging into today suggest something completely different. This isn't going to be a simple numbers game. It's not just about who has more ships or faster planes.
It all comes down to the human mind, the strength, and yeah, the fragility of it. We're talking about a high-stakes psychological contest, a battle of wills, a test to see whose spirit is going to crack under the pressure first. So that brings us to China's military, the PLA. What does winning even look like for them? You might be surprised. It's not about blowing things up. It's about something much deeper, shattering an enemy's will to even get up and fight.
And look at this. This is straight from their own doctrine. It says it all. Victory isn't just about paralyzing enemy systems. It's about making enemy fighters lose their will and ability to resist. That's the key. They want you to just give up. But, and this is where it gets really interesting, there's a huge twist in this story.
It turns out, while the PLA is busy figuring out how to break its enemies' minds, they're dealing with a massive psychological crisis right at home, inside their own military. Check out this number, 29.7%. That's how many PLA service members, in a huge internal survey, reported having psychological issues. Almost a third. Now that number is big on its own, but wait till you see the context. That's where it gets wild.
Okay, so here's the kicker. That rate, nearly 30%, is pretty much on par with the US military. But the US has been in nonstop combat for 20 years. The PLA, they haven't been in a major war since 1979. So you gotta ask, what on earth is going on? What's causing all this stress?
Well, it's not combat trauma, that's for sure. It's life. Their own studies show the top stressors are things like worrying about getting a long-term job, insane workloads, getting chewed out by superiors. Sound familiar? These are basically modern workplace anxieties, but they're creating wartime levels of mental strain. And the PLA's solution to this? Well, it's something else.
They know they have a problem. They see this as a huge vulnerability. So they've gone all in on a brutal campaign to psychologically bulletproof their soldiers. They're trying to forge a new kind of warrior, and their method is basically trial by fire.
The whole idea is to desensitize them now, before they ever step foot on a real battlefield. The thinking is, if we can expose them to enough simulated horror, the real thing won't be such a shock. They're trying to build up a callus on the mind. And when I say brutal, I mean it. We're talking about making soldiers drive over dummies that look like their buddies. They've got these custom-built training rooms splattered with fake blood, full of mannequins with horrific injuries. They even make them go sleep in spooky old graveyards. Seriously. It's a full-on, systematic attempt to build this warrior mindset by forcing them to face their worst fears.
Okay, so on one hand, the PLA is going to these incredible lengths to build up its own soldiers' minds. But at the exact same time, they are perfecting a strategy to do the complete opposite to their enemies. It's a two-front war, fought entirely in the mind, and it's built on three really important ideas. First up is that concept we mentioned earlier, systems destruction warfare. Remember, the goal here is total paralysis. You make your opponent feel so completely overwhelmed that they don't just lose the ability to fight, they lose the will to even try. The second piece of the puzzle is what they call non-war military activities. This is clever and kind of sneaky. It's all about using your military might for political goals, but with a non-military excuse. Think of it like this. Suddenly, every ship going to Taiwan needs a safety inspection, or huge chunks of the sea are closed for military drills that never seem to end. The point is to create this constant, low-level crisis that just grinds people down. And number three, the most direct attack, cognitive warfare. This is where they go right for the jugular. It's all about weaponizing information, spreading lies to create political chaos, making people doubt their leaders, doubt their allies, and in the end, doubt themselves. To make them ask, is fighting back even worth it? So how does all this work in practice? All right, let's look at how they might put this into action. Forget a big, dramatic D-Day style invasion. The strategy is much more subtle. It's a slow burn, a series of escalating pulses of pressure, like a boa constrictor slowly tightening its grip, designed to psychologically crush Taiwan's will to resist, maybe over years. This lays out a hypothetical plan. It shows how China could use those non-war activities to slowly isolate Taiwan. See, you start with things that are annoying but not quite an active war, like constant shipping inspections or buzzing their airspace. Each pulse gets a little bit worse, mixing military threats with economic pain and propaganda to create this feeling of being trapped with no way out.
So let's break down how this gets worse over time. In the early phases, you're looking at things like record numbers of jets flying into their air defense zone, or maybe cutting the internet cables to some of the smaller islands. It's disruptive, sure, but you can kind of deny it's a real attack. But then it ramps up. You get to the crisis phase. Now we're talking missiles flying right over the main island, cyber attacks taking down the power grid, ransomware freezing the banks, a virtual blockade that causes real shortages of food and fuel. It's one crisis piled on top of another, until daily life just becomes impossible.
So, what's the end game in all this? It's not about planting a flag after a bloody invasion. It's about coercion. The whole point is to squeeze so hard from every direction that the people of Taiwan and their leaders feel like they have no other choice. They're forced to choose unification. It's winning by making the other side give up without a major fight.
And that, right there, changes everything about how we should think about this potential conflict. The real battlefield isn't the Taiwan Strait. It's the space between your ears. The real targets aren't just runways and ports, but the trust people have in their own government, in their own society, and in their friends around the world. So it all boils down to this really fundamental question, doesn't it? In this new kind of warfare, a war of wills, who's actually stronger? The army that works tirelessly to build its soldiers up, or the one that's mastered the art of breaking its enemies down?